right. Welcome back to the Living the Life show. I'm your host, Columbus Cody. And today I've got a super special guest. In fact, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. All right. Today we're going to talk about how to make your love last. Since it's Valentine's Day, we're going to talk about that. So first off, let me say happy Valentine's Day to you, my sweet guest.
Happy Valentine's Day to you too.
Thank you. And then happy Valentine's Day to all the other people that are checking this out, watching it, listening to it. I'm so appreciative of your time. I know how hard it was for you to pencil me in today. So, I take advantage of this moment. All right. So just so my guests get a chance to know you a little bit, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions. You don't know the questions that are coming. So just think for a moment, throw your answer back out. Are you ready?
And you said you can crop out stuff that's not right. You can crop it out, right?
I can't crop anything out.
Okay.
What are you trying to crop out?
I'm ready. I'm just saying, if I don't like what I'm hearing, if I don't like your question, you can crop it out.
Now, let me see. I did send you the contract over, right? Concerning do whatever the host says do. Is that not in the bottom of your contract?
It is not. No.
You didn't read the contract. Thank goodness you signed it. All right. So what cereal best describes our marriage?
Lucky Charms.
Tell me why. Tell me why you say that one.
Honestly, because I really don't know. I can't even picture Lucky Charms right now. Oh, yes. Okay. It has all the little marshmallows in it. Yeah. Well, I'm lucky to be with you. Aww. And you're wonderful. So
thank you. Am I magically delicious?
You are magically delicious.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. It's funny. I asked you that question because you're a cereal lover and I figured it would, be the perfect way to break the ice. All right. So when you think of our relationship, what's the first song that pops in your mind?
I've got nothing but love for you, baby.
5 heartbeats.
Yes.
You want to bless the viewers with a little bit of your vocals?
No.
All right. Last question before we jump into the meat of the day. Has the pandemic, in your opinion, pandemic strained or strengthened our bond?
Definitely strengthened.
Tell me why you say that.
Well, I think the pandemic is just a reflection of another form of I don't want to say conflict,
adversity.
But adversity. Yeah. And I think our marriage has done well throughout all adversity. My dad got sick. My mom got sick. And it just seemed like every time somebody got sick, and not that I want more people to get sick, but it just seemed like we grew closer and we got better, we got stronger. And then going through this, I just don't feel any different. It just feels like the opportunity to love on you and to receive love from you that I probably wouldn't have experienced at another time. So
Awesome. I'm trying not to smile too much.
You're smiling.
I'm trying not to.
Okay.
Can't help it. All right. Do you believe in love at first sight?
No.
No.
I believe in like at first sight, but I don't know about love. Yeah.
Okay. See, because the reason I ask you this is because I truly believe that the first time you saw me, I mean, like it was just boom, I gotta have him. Is that not how you felt?
I did not.
All right. So you don't believe in love at first sight. Now, let me ask you this then. This is a more difficult question. How do you know then when you're in love?
That is a very good question. And I think it's not any one thing. It's not any two thing. It's kind of like, it reminds me of blood pressure. We've talked about blood pressure, yours going up and down, mine, has gone up and down, and everybody has their norm, right? What's high for you may not be high for me. And I think when it comes to recognizing the signs of love, it has to be personal. When you find yourself doing things that's not necessarily a norm for you, I think those are some of the signs you look for to say, okay, this is something different. This is something special. This is something that's lasting, that is giving offering an imprint on my life. these are the signs of love, and they differ for everybody.
Okay. All right. Sound like a great political answer, just all around my question.
And I answered your question.
Now you really sound like a politician. You're combating me. You're fighting against me. All right. So how did you know that I was worthy of your love?
Oh my gosh, it was so easy. It was not any normal relationship. I'll never forget when we first became friends, and it was like literally we were just friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when I woke up, throughout the day, when I went to bed, it was just you were on my mind. And then when we talked, it was like the easiest conversations, and they were never about anything. I don't remember half the stuff we talked about. I think we may have had a couple of moments where we were grown and on the phone, and it's like, are you asleep? Are you asleep? You hang up first. You hang up first.
Right.
We may have had a couple of moments like that, but it was so easy to talk to you. And then the what I really enjoyed about our conversations, or that first early love, the first early signs of love, was that I never felt like I was in competition. I had your undivided attention. But it wasn't a selfish thing. It wasn't I have to be in control thing. It was just this is how you and I are thing. And it was evident from the start.
Well, you mentioned about you can't remember our earlier conversations. I recorded those for quality assurance. So in September of 2006, you said
fake news. Fake news.
All right, you're not going to interrupt the interview like that again, young lady. All right.
Sorry. I learned from my president.
Stop it. You can't be on my podcast talking about that. All right.
Example.
So Proverbs 18:20 says this: whosoever findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor of the Lord. Now, when I read that scripture, see, you're already laughing. I don't know why you're laughing already. But when I read that scripture, I think about how blessed I am first. But I think about how there's a lot of men that wish they had never found their blessing. You know what I mean? and before you jump on me, I'm sure there's women that wish they hadn't found their blessing either. You've been married now 14 years in July. What would you say is the reason you've had a successful marriage?
I can only our foundation. The foundation of our relationship has assured us, and then the fact that I feel in my heart God put us together, and this is what He intended. It's effortless. It's like breathing. It's like walking, riding a bike, things you do. I don't want to say out of routine, because it's not a routine. It's just what is that, muscle memory? It's just you don't have to tell your heart to beat, it just does. That's how easy our marriage is. So when things feel the way that they feel for us, how can you not feel like God was a part of it, especially when it started right? And it started with God at our foundation. So
I like that answer. I like it. That's the reason why you are my Proverbs 18:20 girl. Yeah.
Of course.
All right, let me jump back to Proverbs again. I got another verse for you. And this is Proverbs chapter 5, 18 and 19. And it says this: let your wife be a fountain of blessing for you. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. She is a loving deer and a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you always. May you always be captivated by her love. Now, the reason I picked this verse is because I told you that when you turn 40, I would trade you in for two 20-year-olds, right? Yes, I changed my mind. I'm going to stick with you. I'm going to hang in there with you, but the real question I have for you is, what advice would you offer others on how to keep things from becoming stale? Because when I read this verse and it says, rejoice in the wife of your youth, I think about how a lot of times people get tired of being with the same person, or I'm burned out with my spouse. What advice would you give others on how to keep things from becoming stale, especially with this being the title of today's podcast being how to make your love last?
Well, I again, it goes back to understanding those signs of love, and acknowledging what they are, and but then knowing the person that you're with. And if you want a God-filled relationship, you have to let God lead you, and you can't force it. You can't put a square peg in a round hole, because the truth of the matter is, I can't think of any one thing that we do differently outside of be ourselves that makes us so compatible and keeps things burning. There's never a dull moment. We find joy in every obstacle with our kids. I think about Corey the other day sneaking down here doing stuff he shouldn't do, and how joyful that was. I think about how times you say, "Baby, you need a break." What let me take the kids and let you have a day, go to the spa. And I'm like, all I really want to do is just be here with you and the kids. That's my joy. And so I can't teach that. I can't pinpoint that, other than that's my personality married to your personality and the joy we build together. So the only thing I could tell someone is make sure the person you're with is the person you're supposed to be with. I think if your foundation is strong, everything else will fall into place. We don't practice things. We don't have counseling where we have to do exercises to make sure we're being respectful of each other, being reminded. That just comes naturally for us. We're always in this box of love. And I just don't know how to tell anyone to do that, other than to make sure the person you're with is compatible, and that you're their compatible person. And it has to start from the beginning.
Now, I mean, I won't call it play devil's advocate. You just said a statement that I need like more clarity on. You said, make sure who you're with is who you're supposed to be with. How do I know that? You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I'm lost. How do I keep bouncing from relationship to relationship? How do I know that that's the one I'm supposed to be with?
So obviously I'm married. Mm-hmm. And I do have friends that aren't. And, we talk about relationships, and they talk about, what it's like dating. And in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm married. Not just because, because you're great, because the things that they have to endure to validate a person is like, why even is it worth dating? You got to play this. It's like a checker game. I'm moving this piece to see what you do with your next when the move, and who has time for all of that? But I think what sometimes women do, we make excuses for people. Not just men, but people in general. We make excuses. Oh, he didn't do this because of this. Oh, she didn't do that because of this. Well, sometimes that not doing is a sign, and we don't want to adhere. We want a love relationship so badly that we ignore all the signs. And it's like you cannot. You cannot afford to not see what's right in front of your face, because it's going to keep you from what you want. It's just, you have to pay attention.
And I was looking at your credentials, and I didn't realize that you had marital counseling, love doctor credentials. Look at you, girl, blessing us with knowledge of it. All right. Now, do you think that expectations in relationships nowadays are like far-fetched? They're like totally off scale? Or do you think it's like how it's always been?
It's a combination of both. And I think it varies from person to person. But I think a lot of times people have unrealistic expectations. I think even with our relationship with God, I think a lot of times people say, well, I want our relationship to have a foundation. They expect that foundation to be a symbolism and perfection. And for me, you're not perfect yourself. So how can you expect perfection from your significant other or the person that you're interested in? So having realistic expectations is key, but at the same time, don't waver on them. Maybe my expectation is for you to have a job. It doesn't have to be a 6-figure paying job. It doesn't have to be, making a certain amount of money, because, finances is not the the root to our happiness. But at the very least, you understand the principle of a job, how having steady income is going to impact our ability to build a life together. And
Mm,
so while you may not have this particular job, your understanding of a need for a job satisfies. It's kind of like, any other job you apply for. Since we're talking about jobs, when you read a job description, it says, my preference is a master's degree, but I will accept a bachelor's with X number of years of experience, right? So the same thing in this. This is an application of sorts. You're applying for a job to be my spouse, my husband. So my preference is this. I prefer you to have enough money where I don't have to work. But at
mm,
the very least, can you at least have an understanding of what a job is, so that
mm.
you know that your job with my job will help us to build a life together. And it's not me out here on my own. And not to pick on men and jobs. It's just something, we talk about this kind of high up on the priority. But basically having expectations that are meetable. People can meet it. If your expectation is an astronaut, well, you're limited. You're limiting yourself already.
Mm,
So having expectations that people can meet.
Gotcha. So you mentioned about a job and wanting to stay home. So my teacher check don't stretch that far. But baby, if you want to come home, come on home. We can eat
I'm
beans and
coming.
rice for the rest of our lives. You come on home.
I'm
Make this teacher
coming.
check stretch. And
Amen.
if you do want an astronaut, I can take some night classes, and I can work on my
No, no.
science, and send you
Mm-mm.
to the moon, girl. Send you to the
No.
moon.
I
All
do
right.
not want my husband living in the clouds. We stay on earth right here.
The reason I asked you about the expectations, though, is because I know you read a lot of romance novels, right?
A
And when I say
lot.
romance novels, I don't mean
Yes.
I know you don't read a lot of the mushy junk stuff. You like a
No.
lot of the historical and blah 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 blah
Hmm.
blah blah. But how do I, as a husband, stack up against what you're reading in that book? Like, I'm always going to be letting you down because I don't act like Philippe does in that book you just finished reading. How does a man stack up against that? How do you compete with that?
So I think the first thing you have to do is change your perspective. Don't look at me reading books as something to for you to measure yourself against. Look at it as an educational opportunity for me to improve our life together. It's all in how you look at it. If you look at my romance novels as a measuring tool, you're never going to hit the mark, because that romance novel is not based on me and you, it's based on them. And while we don't have that drama in our life, that lesson I read from her helps me be reminded of how great we are,
Mm.
and not to make that same mistake.
Okay, but see, I
So
guess I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I'm looking at it from the perspective of us as the woman who's
well,
reading,
I just told you to change your perspective.
as as the woman who's reading this book, right? If she is
Mhm.
reading it and it's like, how come my man ain't like Philippe? How come my man ain't like, Jimmy in this story? Jimmy just, I mean, no matter what Jimmy does, he doesn't add up to Philippe. So, and I get what you're saying because you have a decent husband. But for the
Have a
one,
great husband.
oh, thank you. Thank you for correcting that. I will pay you after the show.
Thank you. You
Uh,
will.
but as it relates to a woman that doesn't have such a good husband, and he might be trying, but when she reads this book, she's like, man, look how these other men be acting, and my man ain't doing none of that. That's the way I was posing the question. So I think we
Right.
saw it from two different perspectives. And as you said, I need to change my perspective. I'm just going to ask you to see it from my perspective for a moment
Right.
and help us understand that.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a stab at it because it's not something I feel like I personally experienced.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the problem doesn't lie in the book. The problem lies in the relationship. So it's kind of like, if we're gonna make this a situational issue, then the situation can occur in any book. It can even occur with a man. He's reading Sports Illustrated. Okay, why don't you look like this centerfold, right? Or we're even reading the Bible, okay? Because you have some extremists, I'm gonna call them extremists, who read the Bible with a totally different mindset. Okay, your Proverbs woman, and you can see it in me, but he can't see it in his wife because maybe she's not actually wearing rubies. Okay, maybe he's looking at it literally. I don't know. I'm just using it as an example. But we can have this same question for anyone reading any book. Your ability to discern reality against someone's story that's a figment of their imagination is a personal issue and a personal crisis. I learned a long time ago not to let anyone's opinion of people impact my opinion of that person. So when I read a book, I don't read it in terms of what my husband is or is not doing. I'm reading their story that has no relation to me. So for me to answer your question, I'm struggle with it a little because I don't experience that. I don't read books and want you to do what is done in the book. I read the books because it's like, man, I've never experienced that. Your husband said, what to you? Your husband did that to you, and y'all were able to pull it back together. I've never, and that's not all of the books. Some of the books do not always have happy endings, but it's not a guide. You don't read fiction as a guide to live your realistic life. That would be foolishness. And any woman doing that is setting herself up for failure. So I kind of struggle with that particular question. I just think you have to in your own personality and characteristics, know what you can accept. If you're the type of person that's easily influenced, then this is not the type of book for you, because this is not the book you want influencing your life, because it's not about you, it's about them. And that's my only advice is, if you can't handle it, don't read it.
That's good advice. That's good advice. It's definitely seeing it from the perspective of, this is entertainment for me. This is not me learning some strategies on how to build my marriage, know. But I think subconsciously it's not. But subconsciously though, we do pick up little nuggets like that. You know what I mean? It's like
you do. It's sometimes it's hard not to get enraptured in the feelings. Books tell a story. They make you feel a certain way. I've read books that were so good, I wish I had never read them so I can read it again for the first time, because it's hard to recapture that first feeling. And that's a good book, man. A book that have books that I've read 10. I'm reading a book now that I've read 10 times already.
Wow.
But it's you read it, it's kind of like how you do the Bible. Every time you read it, you get something different. And so you read and you read it and you capture these feelings over, but what could I have missed? Can I read, differently? And the opportunity for the book to reinvent itself is there if you allow it. And so I think people have to understand the purpose of the book, and you can't let yourself get enraptured in someone else's story. You just can't. You gotta live your own.
I tell you, that's one thing I envy about you is your ability to read like that. I have never read a book more than once. You know what I mean? It's like never. But then again, I don't read fiction. You know what I mean? Right. So I guess if I read fiction, it's kind of like I have watched the same movie multiple times. It's similar to that. Like, oh man, I didn't catch that the last time. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's one thing that I do admire and acknowledge about you is how you can sit down and read 3 books in a week. And it's like, what in the world? I hadn't read 3 books my whole lifetime. Right. I'm going to edit that out so everybody doesn't think I don't
keep
read.
That. Keep
that. All right. So you mentioned earlier that you get a chance sometimes to sit down and talk to some of your friends, and you guys have discussions. Because see, men, we don't really talk to each other that much about relationships. I mean, most time it's about sports, and even then, our conversations are like, yep, we just grunt at each other. We don't know, we don't have these deep thoughts, and well, I won't say that. We do have some deep thoughts, but it's about sports. So, here's my question to you: what are some of the pointers that my male listeners could use to help build their relationships based on some of the nuggets or some of the things you heard some of your female friends say? Like, what are some of the things that if we knew that and would use it, man, it would make our relationship so much better. And
Wow,
you don't have to mention any names. You don't have to say,
no.
Samantha told me, but yeah, just like, something that you like, wow, you know what? I'm so glad my husband doesn't do that, but I'm sure there's a lot of men who do, and because a lot of times we don't know. If we knew better, we could do better, or at least we'd have the chance to do better.
Well, I think for most men and women, we all fail to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. And I think if we took a moment to see things from another perspective, from their perspective, it would help guide our reactions. It would help guide our next steps. And that's probably the best example or advice I could give is try to look at every situation, not just from your perspective, but from her perspective or his perspective. That way, when you make a decision, you can make a fully informed decision, because right now you're only making decisions from your perspective, and your perspective is already biased. It's based on how you feel. So when you take the opportunity to step outside your perspective and see things from a different light, you'll make a better decision on how to react or not to react. I think the other thing we have to do, men and women, is not feel so much like we have to be heard. A lot of issues, a lot of situations escalate because we feel like I've got to tell you how I feel. No, you don't. Not everything you feel has to be expressed. And sometimes your feelings can be better expressed through your actions than your words. And knowing in which case to say, in which case to do.
All right, hold on. Pause right there. I need you to elaborate on that. Your actions versus your words. So give me an example, hypothetical. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think sometimes it's like my mama used to tell me. Of course, she would say this always when I was in trouble, but I can show you better than I can tell you. And so whatever message you're trying to play, because a lot of it feels like a game. It feels like, I don't want to call it manipulation, because it makes dating sound so insensitive and not worthwhile, but dating can be wonderful, and it's an opportunity to find that special person. But it is almost like a game. You're playing a game, and it's, I'm making a move to see what your next move is going to be. That is a game. And so when you're playing games, you have to strategize. You have to have a strategy. And your strategy can't always be that just because you are an independent woman, you make your own money, you got your own house, you pay your own bills, you get to say anything and everything you want. Well, if that's the case, you're going to run everybody away, unless you're looking for someone with mother issues that just want to be walked over. And that doesn't mean you don't have to be strong, independent, and all of those characteristics. Sometimes the evidence of that is better in me showing you than my words, because I can say anything. I've got $1 million. Well, where's that? I can't show you because I don't have it. So how relevant are my words compared to my actions in this scenario? So I can't think of a specific scenario, just in general, because sometimes we say things for the wrong reasons. We say things to hurt, not to help. But if you take a moment and pull back to let your actions speak, then they may actually speak what you're trying to say, and in a way that's not hurtful. So.
Okay. Now, I got one more verse for you, and I want you to, when you hear this verse, I want you to think about Valentine's Day and love. Put that in the forefront of your mind, and then I want you to kind of tell me what the verse speaks to you. All right?
Okay.
It's in Proverbs again, because it's my favorite book. Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 9. And for all of my ladies, you're going to want to put this one down in your book. For all of my fellas, you're going to want to save this verse for when you need it most. All right? Proverbs 21:9 says, better to live on a corner of the roof than share a house with a quarrelsome wife. You know I was going there. Better to live on the corner of the roof than share a house with a quarrelsome wife. What do you think? What do you think about that verse?
I don't know who wrote Proverbs, but
only one of the wise men ever. Yeah.
Whoever wrote that was having a bad day. That's all I know. I think it's a true statement. It's true. And, I mean, not just because it's in the Bible, but just, I mean, it is. But it's not. It's not just a reflection of women. And not just women with their spouse, but women at work, women in friendships. Men with their spouse, men at work.
We're not talking about men right
now. No, sorry, I'm answering. Men in their friendship. So I think the statement is true in irrespective of person.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to be somewhere else than with a quarrelsome partner.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you had to do it all over again, would you still marry me?
I'd marry you twice.
Oh.
I would marry you every day of the week if I could. I wouldn't pay for it, but I would do it. Absolutely.
Cheap little rascal, you.
I mean, I'm saying that was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. Yeah. It was worth it, though. It was worth it.
It was very worth it.
All right. So I'm going to say this as I let you go. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you and I appreciate you. And I appreciate your time. And I pray nothing but many, many more years of wonderful marital bliss over your relationship and whoever that lucky guy is that is married to you.
I agree. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for listening today. I pray that today's show was a blessing to you. I hope you got something out of it to help you keep the fires burning in your relationship. Don't burn down the house. All right. Keep the fires in your relationship burning. Make that love that lasts. All right. She's given us a lot of nuggets, a lot to digest, a lot to think about. For my ladies out there, she's blessed us with a little bit of info that will help you, I believe. For my guys, I picked up a few things. I'm going to go practice them right now, see if it actually works. I'll let y'all know in a future podcast if she was tricking me. All right. I'll let y'all know if she was tricking me. All right. With all that said, have a great rest of your week. Don't forget, watch it, share it, and live it. Now let's get busy living the life.